Okay, there's no beating around the bush today. If you saw the title of this video, you know that we have something special. It's another Italian stallion. This is the Ducati V4R. It's basically the street legal version of the superbike that they race in MotoGP. And I don't know about you, but anytime there's a street legal version of anything from a racetrack, I get pretty freaking excited. So what's so exciting about this? Well, how about the fact that there are wings on the front? Carbon fiber wings derived from Ducati's GP16 superbike. Then there's the engine. It's the Desmosedici Stradale R. Fancy words for a V4, as the name would suggest, not a V-twin. This is 4 cylinders, pounding back and forth, having little explosions under your crotch. All that does is develops 221 horsepower at 15,500 RPMs. Redline, 16,000 RPMs. You heard me right, 16,000. Now, if you get Ducati's performance exhaust by Akrapovic, that number jumps up to 234 horsepower. All of that rolled into a bike that only weighs 379 pounds. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will.
All right, riding the beast, the Ducati V4R. I gotta say, this thing's a bit of an animal, but it's awesome. Cars that weigh 3,000 or even 4,000 pounds don't have this much horsepower. Now the interesting thing is, that power doesn't even come on until you get way up at the top of the rev range. And the red line is 16,000. If you're in 6th gear, it's 16,500. That's the stratosphere. That's Formula 1 engine technology. This thing is a screamer. But there's more to this bike than just the engine. You've got all sorts of settings to play with. I'm not one to go out and pop wheelies on a motorcycle. I just never saw the attraction of that. But it's really cool that you can change your wheelies, how easily you can pop them on this bike. The suspension, like the steering, is adjustable. You can tune it to whatever racetrack you're on or whatever back roads you want to go out carving up. And as far as fancy trickery goes, this bike has other stuff too. Little things like the fact that it has self-canceling turn signals like your car. And the fact that they pack all of this stuff into this tiny little motorcycle is pretty freaking amazing. And these brakes, oh, these Brembo brakes are something. But that noise, oh my gosh, that noise. And the really neat thing is Ducati's quick shift. So you do not need to pull in the clutch under acceleration or deceleration. It takes some getting used to not pull in the clutch, especially if you're a typical motorcycle rider and you've been riding for years. You really want your left hand to work, but it doesn't need to. You can just bloop, bloop. It's so cool. And it even downshifts the same. I'm slowing down. Oh, downshift. No clutch in. The shifts are just, I can't say enough. Just a little lean in on the throttle and shift. As fast as you can flick your foot, that's as fast as this bike is going to respond. And the throttle feels great too. Listen to that sound. That engine is just so cool sounding. And then you can come out of a corner and just freaking shot put yourself all the way to the next corner. But even at like 6/10 or 5/10, because I doubt I'm even above that, this bike is simply amazing. All right, let's get up there. was only 11,000 RPMs. This thing goes to 16 and a half. Ooh, that doesn't smell very good. Good gravy! That's where the power's at, is way up top! And we're not even on the power yet! I own a Ducati 959 Panigale, so I'm a Ducati fangirl, admittedly so. This does things my 959 cannot. Now there are some gripes, of course. The V4R gets exceedingly hot. When I picked it up, in fact, they said make sure you don't ride it with shorts on, even around town. Just running over to your office from the house, don't do it, because you're going to burn your butt. In fact, he told me the bacon that I'll smell is my own ass cooking. It does get hot. Even with pants on, it's hot. The mirrors are interesting because they're fixed. You can't adjust them. You can't change where they're looking, and you gotta really be curled around the bike to be able to see out of the mirrors. So if you're just riding regular and you want to see what's going on behind you, you gotta kind of dip your head down. And again, I'm a sport bike rider, but what's really amazing to me is this bike is comfortable. The balance is so good. The seat's a little firm, but it's wide, and the riding position is actually really nice. You could cruise for 100 miles, 150 miles on this bike and not be too uncomfortable. The tires that are on this bike are definitely track tires. These are not tires that you want to go out in the wet. These are tires made for the dry. It's dry right now, but when you go from in the sun to out of the sun, things can get a little squirrely really quick. Did I mention the brakes? I know I did, but I'll mention it again. That front disc is huge. Floating disc. Listen to that engine though. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh! I got up to 14,000 RPMs that time. It wasn't done. I don't know that anybody that ever owns one of these is going to be able to use its capabilities without taking it to a racetrack.
This was my first ever track day on motorcycles. While I raced cars for 2.5 years in my younger years and have been on track many times in many different cars, I've never had the opportunity to take a motorcycle on the racetrack. I was thrilled that MotoVid was doing this event and that Titler's Motorcycles was sponsoring. I received an invite to go and couldn't pass it up. I brought my own Ducati 959 Panigale. I was provided a full racing suit, gloves, and boots to use for the day. MotoVid did a fantastic job. They had instructors and control riders throughout the entire day. There were 4 different groups split up by experience level: yellow, orange, green, and blue. Yellow was for track rookies like myself, and blue was for people who just couldn't get enough speed. The yellow group also had classroom time in between each on-track session. And the day was split up very intelligently, with each group getting 15 minutes on the track every hour. We started as lead follow, with no passing, and throughout the day, lead follow went away and passing was allowed on more and more sections of the track. I went out in the first 2 sessions on my own motorcycle and really pushed it beyond anything I've ever done on the street. It was fantastic. My 3rd session out, I took Ducati's new V2, which is the current iteration of my 959. For that particular session, I asked if I could stick with a control rider the whole time. I'm one of those riders that feels confident in my own abilities if I see somebody else that I trust doing it as well. It was probably my favorite run of the day because every time my control rider turned around to look, I was right behind him. After a wonderful lunch break and a chat from a couple professional riders, I took the V4R out on the track. It was everything the V2 was and more. I could brake later, accelerate faster. I actually saw 160 miles an hour on the front straight at Road America on a motorcycle. It was amazing. There were two different pro riders there, Larry Pegram, who used to race with Ducati, and Nate Kern from BMW. I had the great fortune of having dinner with both Larry and Nate the night before, along with a few other riders. Nate and Larry gave their ins and outs of riding a superbike at Road America. Their tips definitely stayed in my head the next day. One of the high points of the day was watching Larry and Nate duke it out, with Larry on the Ducati Superleggera and Nate on the BMW HP4 superbike. Those motorcycles sounded like World War II fighter aircraft coming up the main straight at Road America. And seeing Larry ride wheelies between turns 3 and 5 was truly something to behold. It was awesome that these guys were present that day, took the time out to really spend some time with folks like us who just want to become better riders. I have to say that I learned more about motorcycle riding in that single day on the track than I have in all of my years of riding on the road. If you're a motorcycle rider and want to really find out what your bike is capable of and really develop your skills to the next level, I can't recommend doing a motorcycle track day enough.
One of the big negatives about this bike is, of course, that price tag. Is it that big of a negative when you get all of what this performance potential is in one motorcycle? I don't know. It's a pretty valid price for the performance, but it is a $40,000 motorcycle. There are more expensive bikes out there, hand-built things like that, but they will not do what this V4R can do. This is a surgical grade weapon. This is a track tool that is well beyond my skills as a rider, but oh my gosh, is it fun to ride. The really cool thing about the V4R is it's forgiving. If I owned this bike and actually went out and used it, I would become a better rider. And I think that statement alone is worth the price of admission. Man, is this thing special. A lot of people say that Ducati is the Ferrari of motorcycles. All I can tell you is they make some pretty special, amazing machines.